Sarah was taken aback when her boyfriend showed up unexpectedly. She found herself wondering where he had come from. They had known each other for nearly 3 years, having met at a coffee shop where Sarah often stopped after work for a croissant. Throughout that time, Leo had never shown much interest in her beyond casual greetings and occasional conversations about coffee or cake. Then, without warning, Leo began to pursue her with enthusiasm. It was so sudden that Sarah barely had time to process it before she found herself deeply involved in their relationship. She chuckled to herself, questioning how it was possible to fall in love at her age. "Why do you say at your age?" Leo asked, genuinely surprised, his eyes narrowing playfully. "Do you really think you're old, Sarah?" "Well," she pondered, "definitely not young. My son is already an adult, and retirement is just around the corner. I think we're still young enough to show the younger ones how to love," he replied, a grin spreading across his face. Sarah laughed, realizing she had fallen for him. The feeling rekindled a long-lost sensation of having wings, transforming her world into a more beautiful, vibrant place. Her heart raced at the thought of their next meeting, or even a simple phone call. She had always envisioned her future as one of quiet retirement, perhaps with knitting needles in hand, but now love had unexpectedly bloomed in her life. "Love," she whispered, savoring the word as if trying it on for size. "Love." She closed her eyes dreamily. The last time she had experienced such feelings was with George, her son Alex's father. Their love had been a long, real connection, both passionate and peacefully harmonious. People often envied their relationship, which was devoid of drama, jealousy, and heated arguments. But fate had other plans. George died tragically in an accident when he was still young. Sarah mourned deeply, likely longer than most, grappling with the emptiness and not knowing how to move forward. From that point on, her sole focus became her son. And now, unexpectedly, is this really possible? Sarah smiled at Leo, sitting across from her at the table. How can feelings ignite at this age? Leo let out a sigh. "Don't ask why, Vera," he replied. "It's better to just embrace it. You can't command your heart." And he was right, you can't command it. Sarah felt a surge of joy and excitement, laughing like a young girl, going on dates, and dreaming through the night while inhaling the sweet aroma of the bouquet of flowers Leo had given her. It was an expensive bouquet. He was generous with gifts. She fondly recalled their shy, awkward goodbye kiss, which felt like a fleeting touch, leaving her heart aching with unexpected happiness. Alex was supportive of her new relationship. "You can't be alone forever," he said with a smile. "It's important to arrange your personal life." He was planning to marry soon, and Sarah had decided to leave him their spacious Stalin-era 3-room apartment in the city center for his future family. A month before his wedding, she shared her plan with him. "Where will you live?" Alex asked, his eyes widening in surprise. "I'll buy a 1-room apartment," Sarah replied. "I saved up for a long time." Finding a new place wasn't difficult, though their savings fell short of affording a well-renovated one. They ended up purchasing an almost empty apartment, and the seller was evasive about the previous occupants, which Sarah didn't press further. What difference did it make, after all? Once the sale was finalized, she eagerly set to work tidying up the apartment. However, her remaining funds were limited, so renovations would need to be done gradually. Fortunately, she hadn't been laid off and even received a raise at work, which thrilled her. Soon, she and Leo would have their own little nest, just as they had always dreamed. Leo had given his apartment to his ex-wife and children and had moved back into a hostel, the same one he was living in when they met. Sarah decided she would definitely invite him to move in with her once she bought her own place. When she mentioned this to Leo, he agreed right away, but his demeanor changed when he saw the apartment. "Well, it's not exactly a mansion," he said, looking around the cramped kitchen, "and it really needs some tidying up. Did some unsavory characters live here?" "I don't know who lived here," Sarah replied honestly, "but we can renovate it." Leo remained silent, walking around and examining the walls, window, and the ceiling, which sported a dusty chandelier hanging from 2 wires. "I'm low on funds right now," he admitted. "I can't contribute." "I didn't ask for money," Sarah said simply. "Just lend a hand physically, and I'll figure out the finances." Leo pursed his lips, eyed her strangely, and nodded reluctantly. Sarah wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him on the cheek. "That's great." But Leo seemed uninterested in helping. He often complained about the apartment, insisting it was unlivable and that it would take ages and a lot of money to remove the cockroaches and fix the utilities. "There are no cockroaches here," Sarah replied, surprised. "And the utilities are relatively new. We mostly just need cosmetic repairs." "Well, then you do it," Leo grumbled. "I'll come help as soon as I can, but right now I have too much to do." To be honest, Sarah hadn't really expected much help from him. She planned to tackle everything on her own. She painted the walls a soft peach, ordered a new kitchen, purchased some furniture, and still had enough left over for new flooring. It wasn't the most expensive option, but at least it was fresh. Throughout the entire renovation process, Leo visited only twice. Once, he brought her a small bag of groceries at her request, which he ended up eating for dinner, and the second time, he helped her carry home plaster and putty before hurrying back to his dorm without stepping beyond the hallway. Sarah hinted that it would be nice for him to stay longer, but he seemed oblivious. "I still have a lot on my plate," he said, looking away as he rushed out the door. "You can manage without me for now, right? I'll definitely help later." "Go," Sarah sighed. She didn't appreciate Leo's behavior, but instead of reacting hastily, she decided to wait and see how things unfolded. Maybe he really was busy. Love made her more forgiving, allowing her to overlook the warning signs. They say feelings can be blinding, and that was certainly true for her. Leo only moved into the apartment once the renovations were complete, or at least as complete as renovations ever get. Most of the major work was finished, and he wandered through the rooms, peering into the bathroom and assessing the new kitchen set. He whistled in admiration. "You must have spent quite a bit of money on this," he remarked. "Not really," Sarah replied with a gentle smile. "The kitchen set isn't new, for example. I decorated the walls myself, bit by bit. I only hired a craftsman for the flooring." "You even put it together yourself," Leo said, surprised, nodding toward the tall wardrobe that reached the ceiling. "My son helped," she admitted. "Excellent," he praised. "Now it's livable, much better than before." However, Sarah didn't realize until 6 months later that her common-law husband never contributed to their shared budget. Love, as it often does, clouded her judgment, leading her to make excuses for him. He had been demoted at work, had to pay alimony, or faced unforeseen expenses related to his ex-wife. "But I have money," Sarah thought. What kind of woman wouldn't support her partner in tough times? Yet this supposed tough time stretched on, and he couldn't even spare 1,000 rubles for their joint expenses. Once, when she asked him to buy cleaning supplies for the kitchen and bathroom, Leo responded that he didn't have any money. As usual, she ended up purchasing them herself. After returning from the store, she set the bags on the table and shot Leo an irritated look. "Leo, how long have we been living together? You haven't even bought a roll of toilet paper. You're always claiming to have some kind of problem. It feels like you're living entirely at my expense. Aren't you ashamed? You've never even paid for utilities." "Utilities?" Leo retorted, his temper flaring. "Is money all you think about?" "Life forces you to," Sarah replied, throwing up her hands. "If you contributed, it would be so much easier for us." Leo stood in silence and left the kitchen. A minute later, he returned, holding the wallet Sarah had gifted him for his birthday. He dramatically opened it and tossed several thousand ruble bills onto the table, then paused to pull out a few more. Is that enough, or do you need more? What do you mean, I need it? Sarah exclaimed, indignant. Don't you need it? You live here too. I see what you're getting at. You're blaming me for the food, Leo said, grimacing. Sarah sighed. No, she didn't want to discuss money, much less demand it. That topic felt low and uncomfortable. But living without money was impossible. And Leo was firmly relying on her, no matter how much she loved him. That was an undeniable truth. Later that evening, her friend Catherine stopped by for tea. They settled into the kitchen, and half an hour later, Leo joined them, engaging in the conversation with enthusiasm, smiling and being polite. Catherine occasionally shot meaningful glances at Sarah, as if to say, "You've got yourself a great guy." This wasn't their first gathering, and Leo always exuded charm, being courteous and an interesting conversationalist, showering compliments on the women around him. "My Sarah is the best," he proclaimed proudly, "and that means her friends are just as amazing." Leo contributed to the utilities for exactly 3 months, consistently paying only half the amount. A couple of times, he bought groceries himself, once picked up cleaning supplies, and even cooked a simple dinner, pasta with ketchup and chopped chicken. After that evening, it was as if someone had swapped him out. He became confident, brazen, and sometimes even rude. Whenever Sarah raised objections, he would respond with, "I pay for the apartment too, so don't silence me." "You pay?" Sarah exclaimed in disbelief. "I do." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely, and don't tell me I haven't given you any money." Sarah sighed and shook her head. Of course, he had contributed, but not much. Yet he made it clear that she shouldn't mention how she was supporting him, claiming it would hurt his fragile male ego. Interesting. What about her own ego? Didn't it suffer? She voiced this frustration aloud, her indignation rising. Leo narrowed his eyes, a gesture that had started to irritate her. "Are you blaming me again?" he asked, offended, "for having problems and not being able to help?" "First of all, I'm not asking you to help me. I'm asking you to support yourself," Sarah replied calmly. "And the moment you gave me a little money, you turned it into a weapon against me." "Oh, so now you're talking back? And I, like a fool, thought you loved me." "I do love you, but it's impossible to live without money. I work just as hard as you do, yet I handle all the household chores and expenses. Why are you here?" "Why me?" Leo shouted. "So you don't need me? Well, then I'm leaving." Sarah considered stopping him, trying to smooth over the conflict, but for some reason, she stayed silent. She thought frantically, is this how a man should behave? Memories of Alex's father made her lips curve into a slight smile. No, this behavior was not worthy. It's unworthy to be offended because you're asked to contribute to shared expenses. And living off a woman's income, completely unforgivable. So she watched in silence as Leo angrily packed his suitcase. He clearly expected her to ask him to stay, casting sideways glances and opening his mouth to speak, yet no words came. He shoved his wrinkled pants and t-shirts into the bag, pressing them down, and glanced back at Sarah once more. Finally, at the threshold, he asked, "What, are you just going to watch me leave?" Sarah brushed her hair back with her hand. "Leo, I'm tired. You're a grown man. You make your own decisions in life. How can I stop you if you've decided to leave?" Leo muttered something under his breath, stepped out, and slammed the door behind him with intent. A month later, Leo called. He apologized, saying he wanted to come back because he couldn't imagine his life without Sarah. After some thought, she agreed, and he returned with the same bag, as if he hadn't even unpacked it. Now he regularly contributed to the household budget without a word of acknowledgement. Yet Sarah felt a persistent tension between them, as if something irrevocable had been lost in their relationship. Probably trust, or love. One thing Sarah knew for sure, it would never be the same again. Indeed, their fleeting happiness didn't last long. Her patience finally snapped one day when Catherine came over again, and Leo, as usual, joined their kitchen gathering. This time, however, he was anything but polite. Abrupt and impatient, he interrupted Catherine, argued with her, and dismissively claimed that she was wrong about everything because God has deprived her of intelligence. What? Catherine straightened up. How are you speaking to me, dear sir? Am I an unreasonable schoolgirl? Yeah, Leva nodded, please. You remind me of a schoolgirl. Yes, you. Yes, you. Catherine choked on her indignation. Leo, how dare you say that? Sarah interjected. Get up and leave us. With pleasure, Leo grinned. I always felt disgusted sitting here. You say such nonsense that my ears hurt. Oh, really? Then why were you here throwing out compliments? Just to keep you from getting upset. But now I can't hide the truth any longer. You know what? Pack your things and get out of here. I don't want to see you anymore. As you wish, Leo chuckled. And once again, he slammed the door behind him, loud and deliberate. This time, Sarah had no intention of forgiving him. His true nature had become as clear as day. What else was there to wait for? She wasn't a naive young woman. She had enough life experience to know that, as they say, only the grave can straighten a hunchback. There was nothing more to add.